I was just thinking about this. I was taking a step back and I was listening to something on the radio on the way to the studio, and they were talking about Walz and how far left Walz is, and so I was just processing this. Walk with me through this. In about the last month or so, you and I have experienced the sitting president of the United States of America be ousted from within his very own party to the naked eye. The Democrats just kicked Joe Biden out and selected their candidate right in front of everybody. We witnessed this in our own lifetime, just in the last month. They tried to murder Donald Trump. They shot him in the ear, almost blew his brains out. He was the Republican nominee, but not quite yet, and they just tried to murder the man. Somebody did. And now we see the Democrat nominee, Kamala Harris, make the dumb political move to shun Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania in favor of Tim Walz of Minnesota. And before we go into the Walz thing, let's just explain really quickly why this is so out of left field and bizarre. Remember, you're not expecting the vice president, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're not expecting your VP pick to win the race for you. The race is never about the VP pick. Okay, it's just not. But you're expecting the VP pick to help a little, fill in some gaps you might have. Remember, why did Obama pick Biden in the very beginning? They had no relationship whatsoever. They didn't even know each other. If you're Barack Obama, why would you pick Joe Biden? He was a famous idiot even back then. Well, Joe Biden had been in the Senate for 8,000 years, foreign relations, things like that. Barack Obama had just gotten to the Senate, had no experience, was thought to be too young. Joe Biden's white. Joe Biden had a bunch of foreign policy experience. Obamas were worried about the black thing. Joe Biden, he didn't win the race for Barack Obama, of course not, but he filled in some gaps. Well, Joe's there, right? Donald Trump did this with Mike Pence. Donald Trump, you know Trump's style, very bombastic in your face, and that can be wonderful for a lot of people, depending on what you like. It could be way too much for some people. Oh, gosh, I don't like it. So who did Trump pick first time around? You picked Mike Pence. Milquetoast Pence. He's so nice. He seems really nice, calm, and filled in some gaps there, right? And so now Dome has to make a selection. Well, look what Trump did this time. He picked J.D. Vance, trying to carry the Rust Belt states. You pick Rust Belt Vance. Dome has to make a point, has to make a choice here. And this is a very, very important choice. You see, this race is likely, I don't want to make a prediction here, but it's likely going to come down to this. The thinking right now is that Donald Trump is going to win most, if not all, of the Sun Belt states, the Sun Belt swing states. That's the Georgias, the Arizonas, the southern states, the Sun Belt. Those are normally swing states. Trump is up comfortably in most of them. Don't want to count my chickens. But the thinking is Trump is going to win the Sun Belt states. From there, if he does win all the Sun Belt states, he needs to win one of three: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. He doesn't have to sweep them, but he's going to need one of them. That looks like a tough hill to climb. Which brings us to Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro, look, I can't stand Josh Shapiro. I'm not a Josh Shapiro fan, but Josh Shapiro is a popular man in the state of Pennsylvania. He is not poorly thought of there. Dome is not popular in Pennsylvania, not outside of the really radical circles. She needs to carry Pennsylvania. Why not grab Shapiro? He made all the sense in the world. Plus, she has this really far left voting record, far left record on video. She's getting bludgeoned by Trump every day now, blasting away at this stuff. Of course, you would pick Josh Shapiro, right? He's the no-brainer. But no, they picked Tim Walz from a state Democrats were always going to win anyway. They were always going to win Minnesota. Tim Walz brings nothing to the ticket except for, well, this stuff.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
It's done.
A packed room at the St. Paul Armory erupted after the governor's signature made driver's license for all the law of the land.
He talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory. That's not how you stop this.
Should cities be allowed to be sanctuary cities?
Yes, local control.
A society that does not put equity and inclusion at the center of it is certainly going to eventually come to the places where we're at.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute. There, that's better.
So the story today is not about Tim Walz. I know that's the headline. And yes, we're going to talk to Liz Collin about this guy specifically. The story is about Dome and how terrible this campaign is. Ignore the hype, the media hype. And it's not that there's not enough hype for her to win. She certainly can win. I'm not saying that. But she's just so insanely bad at this. She's insanely bad for a variety of reasons. She doesn't know anything. She's insanely bad because, again, this is a woman who's really, her only principle really is ambition. That's why there's so much horrible video of her out there, like this little tidbit of her. Remember when Minneapolis was burning down?
But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not, this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
Those St. George Floyd riots are not well thought of, and there's all this video of Dome out there being a nut job. And look, let's go back to the Shapiro pick. Let's just cut right to it. Why did they not choose Shapiro? He's Jewish. That's where we're at. Democrats have such a pro-Hamas problem now from within their own party of demons that Josh Shapiro, the no-brainer pick, was rejected because he's a Jew. This is just process. We've witnessed all this in just the last month. Joe Biden pushed out. Dome handpicked. A radical communist picked as her VP. Trump almost assassinated. Josh Shapiro rejected openly because he's a Jew. These things are happening not just in our lifetime. Right now, this campaign cycle is wild. And again, back to Dome. There's so much video of her out there running her mouth, saying things that are unpopular with independents because Dome says whatever she has to at whatever given moment in order to be popular.
You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
And the laughing. And now she has no, get this, wrap your mind around how insane the Kamala Harris campaign is. She has a website. Every campaign has a website. Everyone has a website now. She has a website. And always, candidates have their positions on the website. And oftentimes, I'll be honest with you, they're vague. That's what politicians kind of are. They want to make sure everyone can read whatever they want to read into it. Kamala Harris doesn't have a positions page. The Democrat nominee for president, the lady who might be our next president in about 3 months, doesn't have a single position laid out because she's taken every position under the sun. In fact, you might call her the position master. Dana Bash was interrogating somebody on it.
In the 2020 primary, the vice president praised the defund the police movement, and now she says she doesn't support defunding the police. She called for decriminalizing crossing the border illegally. Now she supports President Biden's policies for clamping down at the border. She supported Medicare for all at one point, eliminating private insurance, and her campaign says she doesn't support that now. She's reversed herself on a fracking ban. What do you think that voters should think when she's reversed herself on several issues just in the last 4 years.
I think that voters should think that she's a human being who learns new things every single day.
But no concern about flip-flopping?
No concern about flip-flopping. This is our country changes every single day. The conditions of our country changes every single day.
She's a terrible candidate. That's why they're hiding her. That's why she's not doing press interviews. She's a complete and total disaster. And it gave me this thought, maybe this is a little dark, but it gave me this thought. I want to get to Liz Collin and talk more about Tim Walz in a moment, but it gave me this thought. I was thinking about this morning. If we lose, God forbid, right? But if we lose to this commie hag and now her dirtball commie Governor Walz out of Minnesota, if we lose to these people, no positions, communist positions, flip-flopping, no personality, if we lose to these people, maybe we're at a point where we can't win national elections anymore. Because if we can't beat Harris-Walz, what happened? Is it the end of the world? Is this a blip on the radar? Is this just, if you're looking for the details and the technical stuff, we will get to that in just a couple minutes. I want to hit on something different first, though. It's different, but it's not different, and this is why. This is going to be a zoom out. You know how we love to zoom out on the show. Don't focus on one individual story, one scandal, one headline of the day. Zoom out. Take a 30,000-foot view, look down at it, so we can understand what we're seeing and why we're seeing it. So not only will it help us understand this story today, it'll help us understand tomorrow, whatever the new scandal is going to be, and the next day, and 10 years from now. If we learn about the how and the why, then we understand things so much more. So allow me to do this. We're going to talk for a moment about patriotism, and that will come back to the markets. Believe me, this is coming back to the markets. It doesn't sound like it will, but it will. So just stay with me here. So yesterday, I was in the kitchen, and we have one of the drawers where we keep our trash can in the kitchen. Wife doesn't want it out. It smells or something like that. So I see my son, one of my sons, open up the drawer, and he had an empty wrapper of some kind, always eating. And I see him look, and I see him just kind of jam it in there and then try to close it. And I said, hold on. And I walked over there, and I look, and trash can is overflowing. And I said, son, what are you doing? What do you think you should do right now? And he said, take it out. That's right. Take it out. Why should you take it out? He said, because I'm responsible and because I care enough about our house to take the trash out. It's a true story. So what's going on in the country? Let's talk about patriotism, shall we? Patriotism is one of those things people don't really fully understand. If you're on the left or you're part of Republican leadership, it's something you kind of sneer at, roll your eyes at. Oh, here we go, America. That's on the left. If you're on the right, not you personally, but if you're one of the norms, the normies, I'm surrounded by these people. What is patriotism to them? Well, it's putting on an American flag hat on July 4th, of course, and I'm a patriot. I love guns, and okay, I love American flag hats. I own one myself. I certainly love guns, but that's not patriotism. Patriotism is love of country, genuine appreciation of country, a feeling that you, me, that we're blessed to be here. And when you feel like that, you automatically, when you feel that kind of love, that kind of appreciation, you automatically feel a sense of duty to that nation, an obligation to that nation. You look at the trash and you automatically take it out because you love it here. I love this house. It's a roof over my head. It's air conditioning. There's food in the pantry, and there's something that needs to be fixed. I will fix it. You look at your country in the exact same way. The problem we have, and this is not unique to America, this is all across the West, We have a patriotism problem in the United States of America, not just at the bottom, at the highest levels of the government, the bureaucracy, corporate leaders, and that explains so much of why we are where we are. You see, when you wake up and you're the president, you're a senator, you're a member of the House, you're a CEO of Facebook, you're a whoever, when you wake up and you don't feel even the tiniest obligation or duty to your country, to your fellow American citizen, then what it does is it gives you a license to do whatever you want to do. You become completely beholden to your own selfish desires because you're not part of something bigger. You're not part of a country that you should serve and protect and love. And America just becomes a bank vault to you. If you want to understand why the evil people who lead us do the things they do, Democrat and Republican, why do they do it? Because they don't love the country, not like you do. They don't even, most of them never even think about the country. They look at America as a bank vault. That's it. You, the annoying citizen, caring about your rights and prices, you're an inconvenience. They keep you around, though, because you're a tax farm. That's how they look at you. They don't look at your suffering. You're sitting there, you can't afford groceries, you just moved back in with your parents, you're suffering, your daughter was just raped by an illegal, and they don't look at you and feel any amount of sorrow or sympathy whatsoever. Those things only would well up inside of patriots. You are a tax form. You're a battery that powers the system, and that's why they do everything that they do. Why in the world would you flood a nation with tens of millions of barbarians from all over the planet? You wake up every single day, you have a news article about American girl raped, American family killed in a DUI, American jobs ruined, American schools overrun, American hospitals overrun, costs going through the roof. And if you're one of the politicians, Democrat and Republican, who are doing that on purpose, if you had any sense of patriotism or obligation, any sense of duty for your country, you would look at that and you would be mortified and you would say, close the border and stop this. And we have to care for American citizens first. But if you don't feel that, well, open up the gates, bring them all in. It's cheap labor, baby. Cheap labor, easier votes. These people crossing the border aren't worried about their Second Amendment rights. That's you, annoying citizen. You're so annoying, they're just going to bring in someone to replace you. Why would they do that? Because they don't love the country. Why do they pass trillion-dollar bills? You know, you've probably heard me. If you've watched the show for any length of time, I will ask House members and senators when they come on the show, I will oftentimes ask them when it comes to spending, don't your colleagues understand that they are destroying the value of the dollar and destroying future generations? Don't they understand? I always ask them, don't they understand? Don't they understand? And almost universally they respond, they understand. They don't care. Every single time Democrats and Republicans get together and pass another $1 trillion bill, well, they weaken the value of your dollar. They weaken the future of your children and your grandchildren. And they know it. They know it. Every single time they know it. They don't care. This is just the bank vault, of course. Your children, your way of life, being able to own a home, find a good job, afford groceries. Those are just thoughts of the peasants. The people who rule the West don't care about the peasants anymore. They just care about looting the country. Why do we have these huge stock market problems, real estate problems, commercial, residential? Why do we have an open border? Why do we have all these things? Because the people who run the United States of America don't care about it at all. And I've got some really, really, really bad news for you before we get to Carol Roth. She's going to give us actually some hopeful news as well. So I'm not going to finish on that, but just know I've got some worse news for you. Whatever they do to solve the coming economic problems, whether these problems are tomorrow, next year, 10 years from now. Whatever they do will make the problem worse. Whatever they do, it will be terrible for you and good for them. They will spend money and hand it out to their friends while you suffer. They will split up and piecemeal all these small banks and hand them out to their large bank friends. You see, the evil people who run the United States of America can't ever, ever, ever come up with a patriotic solution, a solution that is good for the people to any problem. It doesn't matter what the problem is. They can't ever come up with it because they're not patriots. Patriotism, what's good for you, what's good for the country, never even enters these people's minds. You know, we talk about them hating the country, and oftentimes they do. Oftentimes that's very, very true. You know, you get somebody like Rashida Tlaib. She really just hates America. She'd set a whole country on fire if she could. But the real sad truth is most of the people who lead the West, they don't care about it at all. Remember when Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act, a $1 trillion bill that didn't do anything to touch inflation and handed out $1 trillion to their political allies, and then they called it the Inflation Reduction Act right to your face. Remember Mitch McConnell? After that GOP took back the House in the midterms, there was that little window of time, that 2-month period of time where it's called a lame duck Congress, and you generally don't pass anything during that time. It's considered kind of something you don't do. And Mitch McConnell got with Democrats to pass $1 trillion omnibus bill, a big handout to these people, all the friends of the government, all while you couldn't afford eggs. The truth is we are led by evil, evil men. And they hate the country. And until we fix that, whatever scandal comes today, tomorrow, the next day, it won't matter. We can't save this place without patriotism. You remember I was gone, it was a couple weeks ago, I was gone for a couple days. And one of the places I was all over the place, I was at a reunion for the Marine Corps. Guys I went to Iraq with, we had a little Marine Corps reunion. We didn't do anything fancy. We're not fancy people. We rented some ratty little house on a lake and we made cheeseburgers, had a couple beers, caught up on old times. That's what we did. But one night, we were sitting around, it was actually the first night, we were sitting around just laughing, joking, talking about people we miss and times we had. And we decided we wanted to talk to our old first sergeant. For you non-military types, that is a very, very senior enlisted guy. He's a very senior enlisted guy, okay? We decided we wanted to talk to him. Now, I got out of the Marine Corps in 2004. I was a 4-year infantry Marine. And we all, as we discussed him, we said, yeah, I wonder, do you think, should we call him? I don't know, it's too late, should we call him? So I pick up my phone, I shoot him a text message and say, hey, Sergeant Major, because he was a Sergeant Major when he retired. Hey, Sergeant Major, we're sitting around gabbing, me and the fellas. You want to talk to us? 30 seconds. My phone beeped back. Oh, absolutely, call me. This was at 11:30 at night. We called him, we put him on speaker at 11:30 at night, and he just sat and talked to us. He wasn't in charge of us anymore. He wanted to know how we were. How were our lives? How were our families? How were our jobs? Did we need help? That was one of the first things he asked. Hey, you guys need anything? Are you okay? I can't properly explain to you better than that what a senior enlisted guy, what a staff NCO, non-commissioned officer, just a senior guy like that, what he means to the troops, especially the young troops, the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. When you're in, even when you're out, they are father figures. I'm still in touch. Again, I've been gone for 20 years. I'm old and gray and fat. I've been gone for 20 years, and I still talk to multiple staff NCOs of mine because they guide me, they mentor me, we're friends. When you're in, they're everything. They are father figures for you. And that brings me to this story about Tim Walz. Now, I know you're not a big fan of Tim Walz. I'm not a big fan of Tim Walz, his crazy positions and all these things. And I just set that aside for a moment. I already know he's a dirty communist. It's not that. Tim Walz was about to be the command sergeant major of his National Guard unit as they deployed to Iraq. That means he was going to be the senior enlisted man in his unit. He was going to be the father figure to all those young men who were about to leave the safety of home and walk into a combat zone at a time in Iraq when it was nasty over there. IEDs and death and misery. And this man, with all these young soldiers under his charge, after he found out he was going to be deployed, quickly turns in his retirement papers so he can go and run for Congress and not deploy with his troops. Now, if you are military or a veteran, your blood pressure is already spiking through the roof. If you're not one of those, that's fine. I'm certainly not talking down to anyone. I hope I properly conveyed what that means and how despicable that is, how cowardly and despicable and gutless that is. You are the mentor, father figure, trainer. Yes, you are the disciplinarian. As a senior enlisted guy, you are essentially the dad for the troops underneath you. And when his sons were getting ready to deploy to combat, Tim Walz said, "Have a good time, boys. I want to go be in Congress." That is so revealing about who this person is in the worst possible way. And I know about he wanted tampons and put tampons in boys' restrooms. I know about his gun-grabbing ways. I know about his acquiescence during the St. George Floyd riots. I know all the terrible things about Tim Walz and his positions. There is nothing more despicable about that human being than knowing when his troops were getting ready to go into hell, Tim Walz said, "Nah, not for me. I'm going to Congress." It is an indictment on the man, and if he agreed with me on every single issue, I would hate that human being until the day I die. You don't do that to your troops. I cannot believe this human being is anywhere near the Oval Office. I can't believe he's a governor. I can't believe he was ever a congressman. And of course, having bailed on his deployment, having bailed on his troops, Tim Walz is Mr. Stolen Valor.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, "Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this." I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Weapons of war that I carried in war? What war zone was that, Tim? You sent your men over there. You stayed back and sat on your fat butt in Congress while your men went over there and died. What war zone did you carry a weapon in, Tim? Minneapolis? It certainly wasn't Iraq, and it certainly wasn't with your men. What a despicable human being. And of course, because all the communists do is lie, Dome and her surrogates are running to the television to question J.D. Vance's service?
Well, here is Tim Walz, who enlisted when he was 17 years old. He served in the National Guard for 24 years. And I'm not aware of any military service that J.D. Vance has ever served. So let's just make the comparison there. And what happened in the tragedy of the killing of George Floyd and then the unrest. Yeah, okay, pardon me for that.
These people are awful. And J.D. Vance, who is killing it on the campaign trail, might I add, he responded and responded well.
Bothers me about Tim Walz as a Marine who served his country in uniform. When the United States Marine Corps, when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful to prepare your unit to go to Iraq, to make a promise that you're going to follow through, and then to drop out.
It's more than shameful. It's cowardice. I could not possibly think lower of anybody than I think of guys like Tim Walz who pull that crap. What if I climbed up to the top of this building we're in now? It's a really tall building. What if I climbed up to the top of this building and I shouted down to you and I said, I'm going to jump off this building? You said, no, Jesse, don't. And I said, no, I'm going to jump because I can fly. I'm going to spread my arms out and flap them really hard. I'm going to fly. Let me ask you something. Would you think I was sane or insane? You'd think I was insane. But why? Because I believed something that wasn't true at all. It's really the definition of insanity. It's what an insane person does. It's time to talk about an uncomfortable truth. We share a country with a bunch of people who are insane. And I'm not saying that in the normal insulting way I do, but the average American Democrat is an insane person. The Democrat Party understands its base is full of insane people. They placate those insane people. The insane people just get together and they have big insane parties and things just spiral down and down and down from there as the insanity gets worse and worse and worse. Have you ever watched a Democrat speak, a congressman, a senator, somebody running for office, and said to yourself, who are they speaking to? This is so unappealing. I don't know what they're talking about. They speak in this weird language. They're saying horrible things. Who are they speaking to? Well, this is something people have a hard time grasping. They're not speaking to you. You are a hyper-informed voter. You seek out information. You process things with your mind. You come to reasonable conclusions. Democrats understand they are never, ever, 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 ever going to get your vote in a million years, so they don't waste time speaking to you. Would you like to know why everything that comes out of their mouth sounds gross, almost alien, and most definitely insane? Allow me to introduce you to the beating heart of the Democrat Party. You can laugh and say, I just grabbed a video there, but we now have the studies that show married men vote Republican, married women vote Republican, single men vote Republican, but there's this one outlier out there, single women to the tune of 70%, give or take, they vote Democrat every single time, and the majority of them, 60%, have been on anti-anxiety medications for a very long time as well. And that is the beating heart of the Democrat Party. If it seems like the things they're saying are insane when they give their press conferences, it's because they are insane and because they understand their true base, their true voter is equally insane, and that's who they're speaking to. The average American Democrat lives in a world of make-believe, and it's young and old. It's not just young nutballs in the forest like that. It's cat ladies like this.
I'm a childless cat woman, but I'm happy. Bring laughter on, you know?
Say to Vance.
Yeah, what is your message to Vance?
You're gonna have to use the message.
You don't mess with childless cat ladies.
Have you always been this enthusiastic about politics, or is this new?
Since Donald Trump got in, I watched Rachel through his whole term because I had to stay ahead.
They're insane. The American Democrat is insane. And so that's who Democrats speak to. And I want you to just, you want a good example of this? Here's a great example of this. Have you ever heard a Democrat in your life, maybe a coworker, an aunt, a mother, a child, whoever it may be, maybe you've seen this on social media. Have you ever seen them talk about Donald Trump suggesting you be injected with bleach to fight COVID? Have you ever seen anything like that? I'm laughing because I know you have. We all have. We've seen Democrats say that. You saw this Democrat on Fox News get blasted out of the sky for saying such a thing.
COVID and injecting bleach into.
Oh, come on. That's a hoax.
We're talking
no one
about
said injecting bleach. Please look it up. Please look it up. We'll do it in real time. No. It never happened.
It never happened.
You are literally living in a delusion right now. That never was said. Do the research. Okay. No one ever said injecting bleach. Look it up. It's been debunked. That's just like the fine people hoax.
But that's not even, that's a
I hate having to fix these things in real time.
Do you see the shock on that lady? Oh, it's been debunked. And here's maybe the craziest part. What Donald Trump said that day was on videotape.
Said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do, either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that, too. Sounds interesting.
Get the right folks who could.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
Your liberal Aunt Peggy thinks Donald Trump told her to inject bleach because she's insane. And we are up against insane people.